a convoy laden with symbolism, messages and controversy, crossing a bitter and violent divide. The Viva Palestina convoy finally arrived in the Gaza Strip on Wednesday, carrying humanitarian aid, but also causing more political controversy, raising tensions between countries and widening the gap between governments and people. Was it worth it? And could it have been handled differently? What are the politics behind the scene? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Hood Abdelhamid. They've made it to the Gaza Strip a month after leaving Europe. But it's been a month marked by diplomatic tensions, enforced changes of route, and in the final hours, violent clashes with Egyptian security forces. Egyptian authorities accuse convoy organizers of deliberately disregarding Egyptian regulations as to where the convoy can go to, reach the border with Gaza, and what kind of aid can transit through that border. Egypt cites a wide range of issues, from national security to sovereignty, to legal issues and restrictions imposed by bilateral agreements between Cairo and Israel. Since Hamas took control of the Gaza Strip in June 2007, Egypt has been refusing to open the Rafah crossing without the presence of EU monitors on the Palestinian side. The monitors left Gaza soon after the Hamas takeover of the Strip. And since Israel's war on Gaza a year ago, the Egyptian government has been harshly criticized for tightening the siege on the Strip. It was accused of punishing the entire population of Gaza in order to put pressure on Hamas. Cairo is also viewed as trying to weaken Hamas because of its Islamic roots and its strong links with the Muslim Brotherhood, the strongest opposition to the Egyptian regime. Egypt is currently accused of building an iron wall under its border with Gaza to stop tunnel smuggling. Egypt says securing the border remains a top priority, brushing aside international protests against the blockade. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry spokesman Hossein Zaki said, "This used to matter before, and we were sensitive to criticism. Now, this is the way it will be." Egypt warns that its patience has limits. Any other attempt to provoke the Egyptian security will have consequences. He earlier accused the convoy organizers of deliberately ignoring Egypt's regulations and trying to apply pressure on the Egyptian government. George Galloway, the convoy leader, rejected these accusations.
Al Arish is a tiny village with a port that was completely filled by our 200 vehicles, with an airport that doesn't have enough visa stickers for the number of passengers that it knows are arriving. This Foreign Ministry of Egypt, and particularly its spokesman, Mr. Zaki, is trying to throw sand in the eyes of the Arab public opinion. But you know what? I'm very confident. There is two versions of events. One of them is Mr. Zaki's. One of them is George Galloway's. I am perfectly sure which version the people watching this program believe. You will be lonely if you're a believer in Mr. Zaki. Even in Egypt, you will be lonely.
Joining us now are our guests. In Gaza City, John Herson. He's one of the convoy organizers. In Istanbul, Mustafa Akyol. He's deputy editor of the Turkish Daily News. And in Cairo, Gamal Abdelgawad. He's an analyst with El Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies. Welcome, gentlemen, welcome to the show. John Herson, let me start with you. We just heard George Galloway saying that there were two versions of events. So could you please briefly tell us, what did the Egyptians tell you prior leaving Europe, and what exactly happened according to you?
Well, to be honest with you, the goalposts keep changing and changing and changing from the Egyptian side. And when we got into Aqaba on Christmas Eve, at that stage we were 5 hours away roughly from reaching Gaza. Now, I cannot see what, there's no reason whatsoever why at that point we were not allowed to cross on a roll-off ferry, drive the short distance across to Rafah and enter Gaza at that point. Instead, we were sent on a complete roundabout, right back up the whole length of Jordan, up through Syria, and then in through the Port of Latika with a charter boat, charter flights, added as considerable. I mean, there is no, we don't even have a total cost yet on what the extra cost that put on this. For all the 517 humanitarians that had volunteered their time to go on the convoy, their work, their jobs. We have all been away from home for Christmas. We've all missed our families and our friends. And, you know, I don't know how people in Egypt can view this, but I can perfectly tell you this much. Everybody that we have spoke to back in Europe, back in the US, and especially in my country in Ireland, cannot for the life of them figure out why, when we were only 5 hours away, that they sent us on a round trip that went on for days and days and days and days. And nobody can figure it out. It's beyond belief that people in Gaza, the besieged people in Gaza right now that are missing, that are denied everything that we take in this world for granted, that they're denied everything, and that we were denied bringing it to them in a speedy, swiftly fashion. It's beyond
Okay, excuse me to
comprehension.
interrupt. Just to be clear, did you have permission from the Egyptian authorities before leaving Europe to cross the Rafah border or not?
Yes, we had permission to come into Al Arish, and we were told we'd be welcome in Al Arish and cross into Gaza, yes.
Okay. Now, Gamal Abdel Gawad, this is not the first time a convoy tries to transit through Egypt to go to Gaza to bring humanitarian aid, which is much needed. Couldn't the Egyptian authorities handle it in a different way? Shouldn't they be ready for such eventualities?
Yeah, definitely the Egyptian performance could have been much better, but at the same time, what we are watching here is not just a matter of misunderstanding or so. It's a matter of political conflict, rather. Yes, we have a big label of delivering humanitarian assistance needed in the Gaza Strip. But the fact of the matter that there is another dimension to it, a political dimension, because those supplies could have reached the Gaza Strip through different ways. The insistence that they go through Egypt, the insistence that they go through a certain route rather than the route selected by the Egyptian government is political. I think that what we see here is developing a setup that put the pressure on the Egyptian government while not mentioning or use this opportunity to put the pressure and the blame on the real parties, Israel on the one hand, the occupying power in the Gaza Strip, the parties that exercise the closure around the Gaza Strip, and on the other hand, the Palestinian factions, particularly Hamas, who have been failing to reconcile so that we can somewhat normalize the situation in the Gaza Strip. It's all about the political statement to be made when everybody in the world is watching the clashes between the Egyptian police and the activists coming with the convoy. I think this is what was sought from the very beginning, and this is the part of the dynamics of regional conflicts between different views, radical and moderate views about how the situation in the entire region should be handled, how the Arab-Israeli conflict should be handled. And I think this is the fact of the matter. It is not just about the logistics. It's not just about the humanitarian aid. I don't think we will be fair to believe or to be made to believe that a couple of hundreds small trucks will provide what is needed in Palestine. We rather, the real task is to provide for sustainable arrangements that would allow the removal of the closures around Gaza. And definitely this convoy is not helping in that regard. It is rather about deepening the polarization in the region and trying to corner Egypt and exert pressure against it. Basically, the political agenda, the political statement is what this is all about, basically.
Okay, Mustafa Akyol, Turkey got directly involved with this convoy. Reportedly, it even paid for the convoy to be rerouted to Syria and back. Why did Turkey step in such a heavy way?
Well, since from the beginning of the war, the tragedy in Gaza, Turkey has been deeply involved because Turkish society deeply cares for the suffering of the Palestinian people, and in this case, especially in Gaza. And the Turkish government, the AKP government, Justice and Development Party, deeply cares, and they have been involved. And this is just another example. There are 5 Turkish members from the Turkish parliament in the convoy. They are there. They have been waiting to get in, and they have been a part of the convoy. So Turkey wants to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza in all ways possible. Turkey also tried to do via Israel, but Israel was not helpful. And now Turks are a little bit surprised and not very happy to see that Egypt has not been helpful as well. And people really don't understand why the Egyptians just waited for 3 days and led to a conflict just to allow this aid to Gaza. And people just think that Egypt has not been helpful, and they question Egypt's political motives. What Turkey cares is not the conflicts or the mistrust between the government in Gaza and the government in Egypt. What Turkey cares is the humanitarian situation. And Turkey is surprised that Egypt did not look very terribly helpful in that situation.
Well, as a matter of fact, the Turkish foreign minister is expected to visit Egypt soon. Tensions between the two countries escalated on Tuesday when Egyptian security forces clashed with members of the convoy, which included 5 Turkish deputies. Under Prime Minister Erdogan's leadership, Turkey has taken controversial actions against Israel since a 22-day offensive on Gaza a year ago. On the first day of the Israeli attack on Gaza, Erdogan said that he had been deceived by the then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, who had visited Ankara a few days prior to the war and had given hopes of renewed peace efforts. In retaliation, Erdogan shelved the indirect peace talks between Israel and Syria, which had been taking place in Turkey and were proving to be successful. In January 2009, Erdogan publicly confronted Israeli President Shimon Peres in Davos. The Turkish Prime Minister was visibly angered and walked out of the discussion after telling Peres, "You kill people, I remember the children who died on beaches." And then, in October 2009, Turkey prevented Israel from participating in the planned annual military exercise Anatolian Eagle, stating that its military refused to cooperate with Israeli air forces that had participated in the Gaza offensive. The Turkish decision was praised by most Arabs and by Gazans in particular. Gamal Abdel Gawad, the convoy now is in Gaza, and we have seen pictures of people in Gaza raising the Turkish flag. Now, isn't that a bit embarrassing for Egypt, and isn't there a risk that Egypt will lose Palestinian public support, which in the end is harmful to its own national security, isn't it?
Definitely, it's a sign of increasing popularity of Turkey in the Arab world and among the Palestinians. Yes, there is some embarrassment definitely for the Egyptian government too, but this is all part of, again, of the dynamics taking place in the region. It is the Arab-Israeli conflict, particularly the Palestinian cause, has been a very effective instrument used by any government in the region trying to increase popularity, expand its influence beyond its borders. So we have been in this game for over 60 years since this conflict has begun. It doesn't mean that the position of this or that party demonstrating or showing symbolic support for the Palestinian people, that this will be sufficient to provide for sustainable solution or real support for the Palestinian people. So we have been in this business for quite long. The convoy will leave Gaza. The 5 Turkish deputies will leave too, and Gaza will continue to be next door to Egypt. And whether we talk politics, whether we talk human supplies, whether whatever needed, and also whether we talk about Palestinian reconciliation, it will be Egypt that is there. Turkey, on the other hand, is a kind of a country with a foreign policy that is in transition, a foreign policy that is trying to strike a balance between a past policy where Turkey has West-oriented countries country in a strong relation with Israel, now trying to rather develop and improve its relation with the Arab world. And the most effective way to do that is symbolic moves toward the Palestinian issue, the Palestinian cause. Turkey is still having a functioning relation with Israel in many ways. And what I'm saying here is that we have to, when we're judging Turkish foreign policy, we have to judge the overall picture rather than looking at the scattered anecdotal evidence or moves here and there. By and large, Turkey is still within the so-called moderate bloc in the region, even though it is not exactly member of that. It is trying to figure itself within the regional dynamics in a way that would benefit Turkey, that would reflect the identity feelings, the self-perception of the ruling elite and the ruling party of Turkey in a way that is not completely ready to abandon the past orientations of Turkish foreign policy. So Turkey is in transition, and thus far Turkey is still playing a very constructive way in the region.
I mean, just to illustrate this, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to illustrate this, I would like to bring in John Herson. You've been now in Gaza for less than, for about 24 hours. Have you heard comments by ordinary Gazans telling you their views about Egypt's position and Turkey's position?
Well, the Turkish position, I can tell you, Turkey can hold their head very, very, very high in the eyes of the Gaza people here today, and the Egyptian authorities can hold their heads in shame for the way that they have treated us. This is the second time. I was on the first convoy, and in March we got attacked in Al Arish that night as well. We watched as the Egyptian authorities removed blankets, clothes and food that was destined for the children in Gaza. They removed them. They would not return them to us. I have it videoed. I was there. I witnessed it. A couple of nights ago, they attacked us with tear gas, with water cannons, with bricks, stones, batons. I mean, to treat us as ordinary human beings in that manner, what way and the way they are treating the people in Gaza. And Egypt, I mean, at the end of the day, they hold the keys to the Rafah gate and they keep it locked. And they're sustaining, they are complicit in the siege, and they're sustaining life at the lowest possible form here right now. And that is a crime against humanity in my books and in the eyes of the world. And it's soon time that they woke up, that the Egyptian leadership woke up and looked after the citizens, not only in Gaza, but concerned for the humanity worldwide. The eyes of the world have been watching Egypt in the last 2 weeks. They watched them the way they attacked the peaceful demonstrators that were coming to Gaza in Cairo. They watched the other night as they laid into us with batons, with tear gas, with water cannons. I mean, we had a peaceful demonstration at the front gates, and they attacked us in a most horrible, horrible manner. The images are there for the world to see. The answer is quite simple, and that is open the gates of Rafah and let a bit of humanity into Gaza. Let the people get the food, get the medicine. Like, even footballs for children are banned. Like, how absurd is that? You know, it is crazy. And for America...
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but Mustafa Akyol, isn't it the fact that this convoy and maybe others that will come into the future and the people of Gaza are actually hostage to the wider politics? Egypt is trying to send a message not only to Hamas, maybe it's trying to send a message to Syria and Iran that they are not the only beholders of Hamas's fate and Gaza's fate. And that just at a time where Turkey is improving its relations with Syria and Iran.
Yes, I think here's the thing. Turkey is a latecomer to the region. I mean, Egypt has been dealing with the Israeli-Palestinian question, and Egypt had a long history of first conflict with Israel and then peace with Israel. Turkey is a latecomer in the sense that for long decades, Turkey thought it has not anything to do with the Middle East. That was one of Turkey's way of getting away from the East and being a part of the West idea. But now, in the past decade, Turkey is coming back to its roots. It doesn't mean Turkey is abandoning the West, but Turkey is going back to the region with a sense of responsibility. We Turks always remember that we were in Jerusalem for centuries, and Arabs and Jews lived in peace. And we left, and we're sorry all the tragedy, you know, what happened after that. Maybe this is something romantic in the Turkish psyche, but it's a fact as a feeling here. And now Turks want to be helpful to the region, be helpful to the suffering people in Gaza. And we want to help with every faction. I mean, Turks want to speak with the Syrians to solve the problems between Syria and Israel, or Turkey wants to speak with Iran and be able to build a bridge between Iran and the West. And as for Gaza, Turkey just doesn't think, oh, if the aid gets into Gaza, Hamas will have a political advantage. That's not Turkey what cares really about. What Turkey cares about is that people are suffering, children are suffering in Gaza. I had a meeting with, I was in a meeting with Ahmet Davutoğlu, Turkey's foreign minister, when the Gaza war was going on. And he said, people speak about all these political matters. What we care is that children are being burnt alive by bombs every single day in Gaza. And that's what we are trying to stop. And that's our emotion, that's our motive. And I think that genuine emotion is really, I can see that in the Turkish policy making right now. Well, I mean, people can see it's a tool to manipulate the Palestinian issue. Maybe it has been that way for a lot of time. But Turkey's intention is really to do something there and to be a country which really helps the oppressed peoples of the region, and also trying to build peace and integration, and also build good relations with the West, and including Israel. Turkey still has good relations with Israel, which Turkey should keep. But Turkey will not going to say okay to Israel's actions, which are violations of human rights.
Well, Gamal Abdel Gawad, as it has been a public relations success for Turkey, it has also been a public relations disaster for Egypt, and I think it has alienated not only the public opinion inside Egypt, but across the wider Arab and Muslim world. Does the Egyptian government care about that or not?
Let me put it this way. I think yes, there is a broad criticism for Egypt in the region. I sense that, but talking about Egypt, I think the picture is different. The lay Egyptian, the majority of the Egyptians who are not fairly expressed in the media by and large, they believe that the issue at stake is Egyptian national security, and they tend to support the Egyptian government on that regard.
Let me ask you this, because we've nearly reached the end of the program, so just briefly. Now, at the moment, Egypt is viewed as carrying out the same policy of collective punishment that Israel is carrying by keeping that border crossing closed. So if you're talking about national security, how is that in the interest of Egypt's national security to have a time bomb and a humanitarian disaster at its border?
Definitely, this is a part of the Egyptian foreign policy I myself criticize. I think Egypt had the opportunity and the possibility to be the champion of the humanitarian needs of the Palestinian people of Gaza, and could use this to achieve political goals and purposes. There is a big debate in Egypt on this issue. What I mean is there is a possibility to serve both Egyptian national interests on the one hand, and at the same time serve and use this service to the Palestinian people towards Egyptian national interest and the Palestinian people. Definitely, I'm not saying that the Egyptian foreign policy in that regard is perfect. It has a lot of holes. It needs to be amended in a number of dimensions. But at the same time, the argument about Egyptian national security is correct one. It is not a fake one by any means. And again, just counting how many times the word Israel has been mentioned in this program and all the media coverage to this event tell me that the strategies that is designed by the activists and those who are supporting them allowing Israel to get away of the crimes that it's making. Also,
Mr. Gawad, I'm sorry, we have reached the end of the program. I'm really sorry. We did reach the end of the program now, so I really have to thank you gentlemen in Gaza City, John Hernston, in Istanbul, Mustafa Akyol, and in Cairo, Gamal Abdel Gawad. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.